Hello everyone, my name is Rick Walland. I'm a drummer and a musician with 17 years experience working and playing in the UK music industry. I also hold a bachelor's degree in popular music and recording. This is a brand spanking new podcast series in which I'll speak to musicians, promoters, fans and supporters and artists, primarily from the underground music scenes across the world. About 10 years ago, I did a telephone interview or a conversation with Ian Mackay from Fugazi, Minor Threat, and the co-founder of Discord Records. In this first episode, I'm joined by my good friend Tom Favell, who's also an experienced session musician, music teacher, and a singer-songwriter based in the UK. Here's what's to come.
I can still kind of vividly remember the first time that I rehearsed in a band, and it wasn't at school actually. It was at this rehearsal room in Leicester called Stay Free. I don't know why it's funny, but I mean, we just accepted it.
I was in a band called Riding Shotgun by Starlight with the Ominous Sigh. That was the band name, right? So
Adorno.
Oh, as Tim would say, Adorno.
Adorno and Althusser.
Althusser.
And it's like, if I really think you should read something by a guy called Roland Barthes, and it's called
Roland Barthes.
It's called The Death of the Author.
I've studied for 4 years. Studied music. Practicing 3 hours a day, doing bloody rudiments, doing this and that. Learning how to play a fucking Mozambique on the cowbell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, cool. Well, so I'm from Leicester originally, and it was a pretty good place to grow up, I suppose. It's a city. It's a kind of small to medium size, and there was enough going on, compared to, I don't know, someone who grew up in, I don't know, somewhere like a really small town or a really small village or whatever. So there was enough going on, as a teenager. There was like music shop. There was some really great music shops and record stores and all that kind of thing. School was, I had a good experience at school. They were quite supportive. My teachers, they were quite encouraging. We had like a recording studio. I mean, it wasn't like amazing, but having that in the early 2000s, I thought was quite impressive. Yeah. And we did some recordings, which I think you've heard. Yeah. So yeah, it was good, and could have been a lot worse. But by the time I got to college, I felt like I wanted to kind of move on.
So why did you start playing music? What kind of? I mean, did you pick up a guitar in your house and just messing around, or what got you into music then?
Well, I suppose it was actually drums that I started off with. I started having drum lessons when I was about 9 or 10, after school. It was quite funny actually thinking about it. Like, one of the teachers at my school used to drive me there. I know you couldn't imagine that happening now, could you?
No.
But I know. Definitely. Yeah, but he was he was a nice teacher. But just because I think he was going there to. That's why he was going there to like do an orchestra. I think he was like a music teacher as well. Anyway, so I had these cool drum lessons with a female drum teacher, which was cool. And then I kind of started playing. I went along to these rehearsals with my brother Alex, who played side drum in like a Scottish pipe band, and so I kind of got into drums through that as well. I kind of improved my reading, but then guitar wise, that was like when I was about 11. I got given a guitar by a friend of my dad, a guy called Alan, who's like a close family friend, and he just gave me like a classical guitar, and I got it converted to left-handed at this shop called Sheehan's, which was really good. Jack used to work there.
Who's Jack?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
For people that don't know who Jack is.
Of course. We're not just talking. So Jack Ellis. He's a guy that runs a company called Jack's Instrument Services, which is very good, based in Cheetham Hill. But we've known each other, in Manchester, Cheetham Hill, Manchester. But we've known each other since year 7. And so yeah, so that's Jack. We started our first band together. So I got into guitar through that, and then I met Jack. I think we were in the same form. We started a band called I think we were called Lead at first because it was a heavy metal, and then we changed it to Element 82 because our science teacher was like, well, the 82nd element. Lead is the 82nd element, and I was like, oh, it sounds a bit like Blink 182. We should call ourselves that. So that was drums actually, but then I kind of drifted onto guitar, and so I just through school really, and all I wanted to do was play. I used to go and rehearse like before form, like at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and all that kind of stuff.
It was just kind of for fun really, just the enjoyment of playing and being in a band and just.
Yeah,
I mean that's kind of how I started out as well. I think it was just like you had this. It was like a buzz, just being in a band, just writing songs, playing gigs. And it feels like it's really hard to kind of go back to that feeling. Like now, as a musician, like say, like 17 years on from when I started, when I was 15.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go back to that feeling of just pure joy and gratitude of just writing songs, being in a band, playing gigs. It's really hard to kind of replicate that. I don't think it's possible. I think it's always going to be a new feeling, a new experience as you kind of evolve as a musician. So I think there's a kind of acceptance. You have to accept that you're never going to feel that feeling again, but it's going to be a different kind of feeling, a better, a different kind of joy.
That's a really good way of putting it. I think you're right. I think that initial, because you've got nothing to compare it to as well, like, like the initial feeling of like, for example, I can still kind of vividly remember the first time that I rehearsed in a band. And it wasn't at school, actually. It was at this rehearsal room in Leicester called Stay Free. I don't know why it's funny, but I mean, we just accepted it. It was a cool building actually. It was the old tax offices, right? Above Sheehan's, that music shop I was on about, just near the train.
In Leicester,
in Leicester, next to the train station, and it was just these old rooms. Like it was like an old kind of Art Deco, maybe turn of the century building. Maybe more Art Deco, and they hadn't really changed much about it since it become rehearsal rooms. So like people talked about, finding, like tax forms in the rooms. Right. Yeah. But it was weird. I mean, it was all right. I mean, it wasn't the nicest rehearsal room, but it certainly wasn't the worst. But I remember the first time rehearsing there with Jack and this guy called Oliver James, who was in my, like, we were at school together as well, and he played bass, and he'd literally just bought a bass, like, months before, and I just taught him the root notes to Learn to Fly by Foo Fighters. And I know what you mean. The first time doing it, I was like, man, this is fucking great. I was like, this is cool. I don't know exactly what you mean. It's really hard to recreate that again, but I think you're right in that can't be recreated, but you can kind of add to it. You've got different experiences, and so I know what you mean.
It's
definitely.
I mean, I was talking to Ben about like the kind of drummer that I was when I was in Samuel Sharp. There's a band that I was in with my two brothers between 2006 and 2011. I was a more out of the box, unorthodox type of drummer. Yeah. And after sort of Samuel Sharp, and for like the next 7 years, I was basically a session musician, playing parties and weddings, just covers and functions. But my playing, I became more solid as a player. My tempo was much stronger and more consistent, and my dynamics, and I basically learned to play with dynamics, whereas before I was just kind of one volume, really loud, really intense.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I mean, it was appropriate for the type of music we were playing.
Of course it was. Absolutely.
I do kind of look back fondly on that time, in that I think my chops were like, I felt like my chops were better almost than they are now, but I as good as a musician. I'm a better musician now. Like I can hear the whole sound better now. Right? I can sit back. I don't have to kind of dominate with, you know, with my volume and you know, filling like crazy and, you know. Yeah. So it's kind of, I think it's good and bad, you know.
Yeah.
You become a better musician. You're more kind of conventional in the way you play, and I feel like I kind of lost some of that kind of out of the box kind of writing or playing like I was when I was in Samuel Sharp. So, but I think I've just kind of evolved into a more rounded player, more rounded musician, more rounded drummer now. So. Yeah, it's weird how, you know, how you kind of change as a musician, and how do you feel about yourself, like from when you used to play in college back in Leicester and to now?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think when you're younger, because music means so much to. I mean, I think it always means a lot to people. But when you're younger, you know, like when you're, you know, a teenager and all that kind of stuff, music means so much to you, and it's a very personal thing. And I feel like that you take it so seriously that I remember. I mean, I did actually some of the stuff that I've made a living from doing, like playing covers. I did actually do at quite a young age as well. But it was okay, but I always felt like the most important thing for me was my own songs or playing covers I wanted to play and doing certain styles, and I definitely think that you know, because of all the stuff that I've had to learn and had to play over the years, like you said, it definitely improves your overall kind of your overall level as a musician, and your understanding, and the whole concept of like, it's not just a drummer thing, it's a whole musician thing. The idea of like understanding how to not overplay. And like, I think that's one of the biggest things. So just a tiny tangent, but a good example is there's a really good friend of mine called Alex Dennis that I did the Crete gig with. I was abroad last year. We'll talk about this in a bit, but and he's a great guy. He's a really good singer. He's really good for his age. He's only about 23, 24. And you know, he's got the right attitude and all that kind of thing. But you know, I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, but he overplays a lot. You know, and I think it's something that and the reason I say that is that if I looked back at the way I played at a younger age, I do the exact same thing. I think the biggest thing about being a musician is understanding when not to play. And it's a hard thing, because I think you feel like you've got something to prove, or you think, no, there's a silence, I can't have silence. You think you're doing something wrong. It's not like, it's not all ego, it's not all hubris. It's sometimes you just think you have to. And there's nothing better than like not playing and going, man, the song can breathe. And I think you're right about just when you're younger, you know, I think about the way I used to play, and then I think about the stuff that I've had to do. It's developed me as a musician, definitely. But I feel like with the original side of me, music-wise, and then the cover side of me, I try to, I mean, they do blur a little bit, but I try to kind of put a bit of a line in between them, so that I've kind of got two for the price of one. I can kind of jump between. That makes sense. Yeah.
So, I mean, we will talk about your you know your kind of experience as a session musician in a bit, and obviously that's something we can talk about in the kind of difficulty of being a kind of playing covers, or being in a covers band or functions band, and also trying to be in an originals band. In other words, being a kind of creative musician, creating music. It can cause problems. It can, you know, like playing functions and weddings can be quite soul destroying and
can be
really affect your sort of ability to write, you know, original music. But yeah, so I wanted to ask you actually, because this is I always find this quite interesting. Is can you remember your first gig?
Now, okay. Now, when you say that, I kind of feel like I've got two answers for this. I'm probably just being a bit pedantic, but the first gig that I attended, and then the first gig that I did.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Go for
So
it. Go for it, yeah.
were you kind of on about the first gig I attended?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I was,
great.
I was on about the first gig you played. Sorry,
Oh, great.
Should have
No, that's okay.
specified
That's okay,
that.
man. So the first gig I attended was Oasis in 2000. Oh God, 20 years
Wow.
ago now. I know, right? I was like 12 at Wembley Stadium before they demolished it and like rebuilt it. That was pretty cool. I couldn't see anything, but but it was good. That was really cool. I went with my brother. But my first gig playing, I've been thinking about this, and I suppose probably my earliest gig as like a musician was probably the orchestra at school.
Okay.
Because I just remembered that. I mean, I had the band. You know, I played in Eliminated 2 or whatever, and we used to do gigs from like year 9 onwards. We did these drama theatre gigs, and they got us to play the assemblies and stuff. But before then, when I was in year 7, I think, they got me playing drums in the orchestra, and it was all right, but it was a bit dry for me. I don't know, especially, you know, when you're 12, 13 and you're starting to develop your tastes, and, you know, I think at the time I was like obsessed with like Nirvana or something like that. So it's like, you know, we're playing Orpheus Into the Underworld and Grease. I was like, you know, and they tried to persuade me to stay, and I was like, I'm not really, but it was fun. You know, I think the discipline of it was actually quite fun later on. I think it, you know, even at the time I was like, but so yeah, kind of orchestra stuff at school, and then yeah, just we did these drama theatre gigs which were hilarious. But you know, just she just had the music teacher sitting there just watching us, going, "What kind of music is this?" And we are just like, you know, like we were playing like, you know, Rage Against the Machine and Foo Fighters and System of a Down and stuff. Yeah, so that was good.
So let's talk about your first gig in your first gig in the first band that you was in. Can you remember it? Can you remember how you felt? Because I could quickly tell you about my first gig that didn't actually end up being the first gig, because here's the story. So
Yeah, cool.
So I was in a band with my brother Tom Walland, and another guy called Podder. So I was on drums, Tom was guitar, vocalist, Podder was bass, and we were called U Palestine! U Palestine! And we had this, basically it was my first gig, and it was at a place called the Picket in Liverpool, and it was basically a hip hop rap night. Right, so I don't know how we ended up on the bill.
That always happens, doesn't it? Like they always. Oh, can I just ask, Rick? How old were you?
I think I was about 16.
Okay, so were you still? Were you just into college?
I was at college, so I was going to college in Liverpool at the time, studying music.
Yeah.
And my campus was literally at the top of the road of this place, the Picket, where we were playing. So. Yeah, so it was like a hip hop rap night, and it was pretty packed out, and you know, the atmosphere wasn't great. It was like quite intense and quite almost like aggressive, and like didn't feel good. So we were waiting. We saw a few acts, and then we came on, and we were just about to start playing, and some guy in the crowd shouted, "Mosh pit!" Right, and everyone just started, like, they were just kind of fighting almost, like, it just a massive brawl started, like a big scrap.
The naughties, eh?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, I was just so nervous, because I was like, I'm about to play my first ever gig in my life, and then some guy in the fucking crowd shouted, "Mosh pit!" and they all started fighting, and like the bouncers or the security staff or whatever, they just basically just opened the doors and just like kicked everyone out. So I didn't actually end up playing my first gig. That was my first gig.
For fuck's sake.
It was a massive brawl. So yeah, and that was interesting. But I was just so nervous at the time that I didn't even know what was going on. It was like,
of course.
But so my actual first ever gig was happened to be in a place called Barrow-in-Furness.
Wow.
Up in Cumbria, I think it is.
Yeah.
And
we've played there together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
That was yeah. Obviously, I was really nervous as well. Same. Dad drove us up there, and I don't really remember much about it, apart from a band that we played with, who they were kind of a bunch of fucking dickheads. Basically, they were just like super like arrogant and egotistical and. But yeah, so that was kind of I don't really remember much about it. I just it was kind of like I was just incredibly nervous.
Yeah.
Same with any kind of first time, you know. Obviously, we won't talk about, you know, certain first times, but that's for another podcast series. When when Tom Favell and Rick Wallen lost his virginity back in, people don't want to know about that. So your first gig. Do you remember?
Yeah, I suppose it was. I remember. I don't remember fuck all. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, school-wise, it was. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I could kind of think of it as, you know, you do gigs within the school and college setting, but then, you know, the first gig you do outside of it can be a bit different. But yeah, so I mean, what I can remember of those kind of gigs was, you know, it was set up in the drama theatre, and they'd set up a little stage, and God, in fact, it was, do you know, one of them was really funny actually. So it was kind of promoted as, you know, at school you had to buy tickets and stuff, and like we were going to play, and I think there was some other people, but they, for some reason, like to make it like a more rounded thing as a kind of social event for the kids. I think it must have been year 8 or year 9. Let's say year 9, I reckon. So I was about 13, and they booked a DJ, right? So we were playing, you know, like our own music, some originals, some covers, and oh god, you know, and they put this DJ, and he was hilarious. You know, he was I think, what was he called? Oh god, I can't remember. If I rang Jack or something, he'd probably remember. But he just kept saying the stupidest things, and you know, he just kept like, that was it. So this school that I was in Leicester was in an area of Leicester called Evington, right? And he kept saying, "Good to be back in sunny Syston." Syston is another area of Leicester that's nowhere near. It's like the other part of Leicester, and he kept saying like, "Well, it's like we're not in Syston." And he was just really funny. So, but the actual gig itself, yeah, I mean, you know, what you were saying about being nervous, you know, for me, like, I think because I was in school, it wasn't so bad, but college-wise, the first time that I did a gig kind of outside of college, that was quite scary, because when you're at college, when you're at school, you're kind of with your peers and your friends. It's not so bad. Whereas your gig was like out in the open with an audience you don't know and all those kind of things. I think that's more of a kind of making your bones thing. And for me, one of my first experiences like that was like probably playing a working men's club when I was like 17. And, you know, the audience were just awful. There was no response, and we were just like, why are we even here? And I think the first time you do a gig when you're used to people responding, I think we were kind of protected from that at college. They were like, "Oh, you're great, well done, you're great." And we're like, "Oh yeah, we're awesome." And then you do a gig where people are just like, "It's rubbish," you know, that kind of thing, and they're just like, "Oh," and they're giving you the fingers and stuff like that. So
play Wonderwall. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it can be really disheartening. Like, I remember a couple of gigs when I'd made a mistake or people didn't respond, and I was just so upset. So I think it can be quite personal. So in fact,
you kind of get used to playing to empty rooms. Well, I did anyway. So.
Yeah, I did.
we like to call it a glorified rehearsal.
Paid rehearsal.
Paid rehearsal. That's it. Oh, yeah. Maybe not even paid. I mean, it can
especially originals gigs. Yeah. You know, at least if it's a function gig, you know, if it's a pub gig.
I actually have a little story, funny one.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Right, I was in a band, get this right. I was in a band called Riding Shotgun by Starlight with the Ominous Sigh. That was the band name, right? So it was a guy, basically a guy, it was this Australian guy called Scott, nice guy. He came over to Wigan. He's a musician, and he had this band called Riding Shotgun by Starlight with the Ominous Sigh. And he ended up recruiting me as a drummer, and my friend at the time played bass. And so we played this one gig in Manchester, right? I can't remember the name of the place. And there was like no one there. There was just the other bands, the other bands playing on the bill. And when we started playing, even the bands, like, they just didn't watch. So they sat around the side. And I'm telling you, the only person watching us was Ben. He was sat on a chair in the middle of the, like, basically like the dance floor or whatever, just on his own, just sat there watching us. And I was just thinking to myself, we're basically just doing a rehearsal here. Because it's like, the only person watching is Ben. Even the promoter wasn't watching. Like, nobody was watching. And it was just so odd. Because I was pretty young.
Even the promoter?
Even the promoter wasn't even watching. He was just sat to the side. And this was my kind of, I'd say, second band after U Palestine. So I was still pretty young, like 17.
Wow.
So it was kind of like pretty shocking, but funny at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's disheartening. I know what you mean. It's the amount of gigs I've done where it's like, yeah, they'll book you for this gig and we'll do it. And then it's just like, and even when you bring a couple of people, it's just like, oh, is this it? It's like, well, there's like 4 bands on. They could have brought like 5 people each. That would have been at least, 20 people. Yeah. And you play to like 3. Or like the classic.
At least, like the supporting bands, at least just make a fucking effort to just stand there and just support. Like, to me, that's just really bad kind of bad practice. It's like.
I call it gig karma.
What's that then?
Just people that don't do that. People that you play with and, like, they don't watch you, they don't make an effort, and they think they're all that. And,
aren't they?
Yeah.
It's just like,
and gig karma, I call it. They'll get what's coming to them.
Yeah, so... Right. Right, so now, basically, so now we're going to transition to Tom Favell decides to move to sunny Manchester from Leicester. When did you move to Manchester? Do you remember?
So 2007, September 2007. So I moved to Salford.
Not Manchester.
And well, exactly. Yeah, very.
Salford is a city in itself.
Oh God, yeah. Salfordians will tell you that, which is, it's an older city as well.
Fucking Salford, mate, not Manchester.
Not from Manchester, man. I'm from Salford. We're just gonna, get all of the Salford Mafia wanting to kill us now. But yes, I moved in 2007, and I moved up, because I did 3 years at college in Leicester, and I realised in that third year.
Did you study music at college?
Yeah, so I did a course called Access to Music, which was really good. It was amazing. And just because a part of it, the second year of the course was kind of split into 2 years. It was like stage 3, A and B. Anyway, so a lot of my friends had gone to university in the third year. Like friends that had gone to sixth form, and it made me realise just how much I wanted to leave my hometown. I was 18, I was almost 19, and I was like, I need to go. So I wasn't going to go to uni at first, but then I kind of felt like a new city, that sounds good. And I always felt more like I'd preferred the north. So I went to the audition interview at Salford, and I just got a great vibe, and I thought, great university.
So can I ask you, how did you find out about the course then? So basically, me and Tom actually met on this course, which was called Popular Music and Recording, at the University of Salford. It was a bachelor's degree. So how did you find out about this course then?
From my tutors at college. So I chatted to them about I wanted to study a popular music degree, and it was a lot of people went on it. I think they told me that it was the first university to offer a degree in popular music. So it was quite popular. I think it first started up in like the 90s. I think they had different names for it, But so they we kind of asked them about which universities they'd recommend, and so the ones they spoke, they chatted about we chatted about Salford, and they mentioned Leeds College of Music, and they chatted about some of the stuff down south, like the ACM, the Academy of Contemporary Music, one at Guildford, that's quite popular. But I didn't want to move down south, so kind of recommended that, and I had a look into it. It looked pretty good, and it had so checked it out, and I just got a great vibe from it. I love the building that we're in. It was a Delphi building. I thought it was really cool. It's like this old turn of the century soap factory thing, which I thought was cool.
Now it's basically a derelict building, because they've moved. They've basically got a new building, haven't they? The Popular Music and Recording, the music department.
Yeah.
I've got a new department, essentially a new building on a different part of the campus. And now
they have
our alma mater. I don't know how to say it.
I think it's alma mater.
Alma mater. Our alma mater. The building is still there, but it's just like a derelict building, isn't it? Like a ghost building almost.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, some of the times there, man.
Yeah, interesting building. A lot of character. So yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. So and I just wanted to move to a bigger city, and yeah, I like the vibe of Manchester, and I mean, I was going to apply I was actually had my heart set on Leeds College of Music, which I heard good things about as well. Went for an audition, and I think I got in as well, but I kind of changed my mind. I was just like, I went to the interview at Salford, and I was like, no, I think I wanted. It was a bigger city as well, I thought, and also the idea of going to a conservatoire as opposed to like a university, I kind of felt like a chance to meet more people, and there's more going on. Whereas I think conservatoires can be a little bit insular, a little bit closed up, from the world. So,
yeah. I actually had an audition at LIPA, Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts. So
I didn't even get an audition. I applied for that, and they turned me down. So
yeah, they're pretty. They got a pretty high bar there. I think I didn't get a place. I did the audition, but I wasn't successful. But I probably feel, because Tom and Ben, my brothers, ended up doing the same course, and so I kind of followed them there. And it's good to have people there that So it's probably a better choice in the end that I went to Salford and did PMR. So yeah, carry on.
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely. Like it was good. Where are we? And I did enjoy it. There was a lot of kind of interesting people. Some interesting tutors. Some great.
So you moved to Manchester. How did you feel in your first few years? Did you settle in okay? What was the city like, and how did it compare to Leicester? And
I'll be honest. I did like it, but I felt a bit overwhelmed at first. I mean, in the first 6 months, because it was such a bigger place. Having such a big city on your doorstep. But I did love it. I'm definitely a city person, and I did love just having so much to immerse myself with in terms of, the pubs and the venues and the bars and the restaurants and the culture and the museums and all those kind of things. I know it sounds really like cheesy and sounds like I'm just being like kind of nostalgic and silly, but just like, I really like the architecture of Manchester. I found it fascinating, and I loved, like, when we first moved here, and I remember in the first year, like, going to town, going to the city centre, and just walking down Portland Street and then walking down Oxford Road and just looking at all the buildings, and it was just like, oh, this is bonkers. You know what I mean? I did really like that. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
It's a great city. Yeah, it is a great city.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I think also, like, I kind of felt like the North was my home after being there a little while. I felt like I couldn't really identify with my hometown anymore. I felt like I'd moved on. And every time I went home, for summer and that kind of thing, and Christmas, I just felt like I was going backwards. Maybe it's a youngest son syndrome, but I don't know. I just couldn't identify with it anymore. And I like the grittiness of Salford as well. You know, like as opposed to being in Manchester. I think at first I was like, I wish I could study in Manchester rather than Salford, but I kind of like the grittiness of it. It kind of reminded me of where I grew up as a kid. But I did like going into Manchester, and I really like walking down Oxford Road and just kind of just breathing in the madness of. It was great.
I mean, I think there's a statistic that Oxford Road is like one of the busiest streets during the academic year, because you've got the two big universities there, so there's a lot of international students. It's like one of the busiest streets in, like, I think Europe or something, like during the academic year.
That would make complete sense.
Crazy busy.
You've got Royal Northern as well.
Royal Northern College of Music, yeah.
So yeah.
But I feel the same. Like when I'm in the city, it's like it's the chaos. I don't know. In a weird way, it feels like therapeutic. Like the smell, the exhaust, the people, the skagheads and the pissheads and all that. So I just want to say I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Can I ask that you like and subscribe to my channel to help me expand, and I'll quickly show you how to do this. Okay guys, so here we are. This is the video. So underneath the title, there's the title. Underneath there you'll see the little thumbs up sign. Say I like this. So click on that. And then just a bit further down you've got to subscribe. Click on that. There we go. It's free to subscribe. There's no cost or anything involved. And you'll receive notifications when any new videos are uploaded to my channel. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Absolutely. And amongst that as well, and I know it, sounds a bit, but I think it's just worth saying, but coming from a small city like Leicester, where if you go to town, you kind of generally see people and nothing feels new sometimes. Whereas going to Manchester and kind of just seeing that many people, and I know, and the women, that was good. Just going down
as a single bachelor from Leicester,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's great if for meeting people. Like you meet a lot of new people, and like
exactly.
It's a very cosmopolitan sort of city, so just people from all over the world congregate, sort of massing there, and so yeah. I mean, I felt the same way about when I moved from Wigan. Like Wigan's a really, small town. When I moved from Wigan to Salford to study music at the university, it was like I moved from Wigan to Salford, and I've spent most of my adult life in like Manchester and Salford. So, and to me, it feels more like home there than Wigan. So, but I had my upbringing here, and like I did start playing music in Wigan, and I was part of the Wigan music scene during a period when it was pretty like active, and we even had a lot of bands from overseas come and playing, and it was a really strong music scene for that sort of, I'd say,
great
early noughties to late noughties. I have no idea what it's like now, but anyway, so yeah, so I mean, how was it studying popular music recording? Like, what overall your experience and the people that you met, and so tell me about.
It was good. I mean, like I liked the course overall. The content was pretty good. I did enjoy a lot of it. Some of it I didn't really get at the time. Like when I remember the first year, the first month we were there and stuff, and I was like, great, we're gonna be doing loads of playing songs and writing stuff, and then we had these musicology sessions, and they gave us these massive handouts, and we were reading about like high culture and mass civilization, and I was just like, what? I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, I remember at the time just being a bit like, is this what we're supposed to be doing? But then I actually quite enjoyed it afterwards. I think once I kind of realised, but so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, we basically so yeah, me and Tom met
Oh,
on this course, and there was this one like tutor or lecturer, a guy called Tim Wise. He was an
yeah.
American guy, and
Hi, Tom.
he was a proper character, really
Yeah,
eccentric.
he's awesome.
But yeah, he was entertaining, and he was very much on the kind of academic musicology kind of side of the course. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we did end up, you know, he was kind of leading that and doing the lectures on our on who are the authors, like some of the authors we studied.
Levis.
Levis,
That was the first one, and then we did the Frankfurt School.
yeah,
So we did
Adorno.
Adorno,
Oh,
and
as Tim would
and
say, Adorno.
Adorno and Althusser.
Althusser.
And it's like, if I really think you should read something by a guy called Roland Barthes, and it's called
Roland Barthes.
it's called The Death of the Author. Or what was it? What was it? Not The Death of the Author. There was something else that he did by Roland Barthes. It might have been I can't remember exactly what it was, but I ended up reading that. Yeah.
So I have some stories about this guy because he was a proper fucking mad lad.
Mad lad.
So you might remember this time where this one day we had a lecture with Tim up in the lecture theatre. And this is in the old building that's still there now but not being used anymore. He basically didn't show up.
Yeah, I remember this.
For the lecture, right? Okay, so we're all sitting there, about half an hour's passed and he's not showed up.
Yeah.
Then he turns up and he says he forgot about, he was in the pub having a drink. And he forgot about the lecture. And we just pissing ourselves. It's like, oh, Tim.
Do you remember when? Yeah, I remember his excuse was he was just like, yeah, sorry, I completely forgot. I was having this amazing discussion with.
We all kind of gave him the pass because we were just like, oh, Tim.
Yeah, we were like, oh, Tim Wise, you know. And then,
bugger.
do you remember when we did when he played his? We were talking about we were doing the musical semiotics, the Phil Tagg stuff, and he played My Sharona, and then demonstrated it that he used a pen and said it was ejaculation.
Oh yeah,
he was like my wow, like that.
Oh man, yeah. There was a one day where I don't know if you remember. You might not be in there. I'm not sure. He actually brought a guitar in.
Oh, I missed that.
And he just started playing, going for it in the middle of a lecture.
Oh man,
just shredding. And I was like, this is fucking incredible.
Yeah, I missed that. I'm so annoyed I missed that because I heard about it and I was like, man, what a guy. He was cool. So there were some good shooters. There was a couple that I didn't have that much time for.
Yeah, I don't want to name drop too many people, but
no.
Let's just say there was a certain tutor who let's say he had a successful past, shall we say, and
yeah, I wasn't going to name names. Don't worry.
He liked to talk about himself and his past success during the lectures, and
constantly.
And he wasn't particularly popular with the other students and previous years as well. So
frustrating. Anyway.
Yeah. but let's not get into that.
Yeah.
So I guess now we can kind of segue to post university because this is a really interesting time because we've been in this kind of chamber of musicians for 3 years. For me, it was 4 years because I did foundation music.
Of course, yeah.
And then you're basically all the stress and all the pushing towards the final project and handing in your dissertation and it's all done and then you've submitted everything and it's like, shit, what do I do now?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and obviously we got our results, and it was great. I got distinction and first class for me personally, and then we had the graduation ceremony, but then it was what do I do now?
What now? Yeah.
Like, I don't really have a plan. I mean, like, get a job, yeah. But for me, it was rough. Like, yeah, it was pretty rough. I mean, what was it like for you, sort of post university and?
Same kind of thing. I mean, I decided, because I'd already got a bit of a background in teaching already, I kind of felt like, I thought, well, I should do a PGC, like a, postgraduate certificate education, it's basically like training to be a secondary school teacher. So I thought, well, that'll be good, because it means I can teach music, I've already been kind of teaching for a while, and I still had this concept in my mind of, oh, you can't be a musician and have it be a real job, which we'll get into later. But so I thought, oh, I'll get a job as a teacher. I thought it'd be fun, but it was really hard, man. It was like probably the worst year of my life. It was really hard, and it really wasn't for me, and it was so stressful, and it hit me back a lot, but I understand exactly what you're saying as well, in that you finish your degree and you feel quite directionless. You're not sure, and I think that's probably why I wanted to do that. But it was tough. But then afterwards, by kind of failing that course, I mean, I kind of dropped out towards the end because I just had a fucking nervous breakdown. But it was just awful. But it kind of made me decide that I wanted to focus more on just instrumental teaching. So I just kind of got into that. I think I got a job at Dawson's Dawson's Music. They used to have one in Stockport, and so I got a job teaching guitar there, and I just kind of built it up, and then I kind of moved a little bit into paid function work as well. But it's the whole post uni thing it's just a blur, it really was a blur. It's bonkers. It takes a while for you to kind of recover from the shock of it. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just I ended up getting like a 9-to-5 office job.
Yeah.
And it was really depressing, because I was like, I've studied for 4 years, studying music, practicing 3 hours a day, doing bloody rudiments, doing this and that, learning how to play a fucking Mozambique on the cowbell. So, and I'm sat in this fucking office in Altrincham, doing a fucking office job, being abused by one of the managers because he was a piece of shit, and he fucking hated my guts.
Man,
that's a whole another story in itself. But yeah, it was really depressing. It was I was really struggling. I was really suffering, man. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, I worked so fucking hard on that course, and it's like, it felt like, is this the result of all my sort of blood, sweat and tears, is to be sat in this fucking office 40 hours a week.
It's weird, isn't it?
With a bunch of people that I don't get on with. In fact, now I look back on it, it was proper imposter syndrome. The whole time I was there, I just felt like an imposter.
Yeah.
It was a horrible feeling. And yeah, I mean, as a musician, things kind of went to the back burner. I wasn't playing anywhere near as much, and Samuel Sharp was kind of coming to an end. We were still doing the odd gig here and there. This is like 2010. So me and Tom actually graduated in 2010.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and Samuel Sharp was kind of in decline, kind of coming to the end of its life. So yeah, musically, I had to kind of put everything on the back burner, and I was just like doing this job, and I just didn't. Yeah, I had like the most money I'd ever had in my life. I was kind of salaried or whatever. I felt like an adult or like a grown up. Was like, going out on the weekends, having to, piss up and then doing the whole grind again from Monday. And but yeah, so yeah, I mean, like, for me personally, it was like I was doing a lot of like chopping and changing like jobs, and I had a period of like you as well, of teaching one-to-one drum tuition, and
yeah,
me and Tom worked in the same music school.
Yeah, we did.
Private
Yeah,
music school, in Manchester, and then I had my own students for a period. Actually, I had my own room. I was renting like a room.
Yeah, Islington Mill. Yeah.
Back of Islington Mill, teaching there. Doing okay for a bit, and but then it kind of it didn't work out, and I had to. So it's really hard to find stability as a musician. In this country,
really is.
Personally, from my experience in this country, it's really rough being a session musician. I guess we could go to that now. Like, what's been your experience being a session musician, and talk about like your experiences and what have you done? What's your resume? You know.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to just quickly start off with that term session musician, because it's an interesting one, because it's something that when I was at college we thought it was something that you could make a living from. Like you could move to London and you could get a job, and you could move to London and get a job playing on recording sessions for famous artists, right? If you can read, then you can do it, that kind of thing. And then the same thing with the idea, like a live session musician, like a side person.
I think I'm just going to say, I think that's the kind of thing what we were sold when we was in university. It was like, they were basically selling us the idea that you can be a session musician if you learn to sight read, if you practice like 3-4 hours a day. In a way, they were trying to sell that idea. I mean, yeah, it is possible, but it's very unlikely that you will be successful as a session musician.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
I agree. And the main problem when you think about it is the absolute oversaturation of overqualified musicians. Yeah. And I think it's not just a problem here, it's very much a problem in the States. If you think about like people coming out of Berkeley and all the kind of schools of music and stuff, so you're definitely right.
And obviously technology is very different now, so everybody can basically essentially record everything themselves. They've got their own programs, they've got their own equipment.
Yeah, it's so easy.
You can even get sound libraries of drum kits, people playing drum kits, and you can just drop it in there, and you don't even have to have a live musician playing. No. So technology is a big part of the kind of changes and in the music industry.
So yeah, I mean, so I definitely, I just wanted to, I mean, I know we're going to get onto what we're talking about, but I definitely think the whole session musician thing was, I remember at Salford, in fact, Tim France of all people, who was a tutor at Salford, and I remember him just kind of saying that there isn't a session scene anymore. There's like 4 people that do it all. And we were just like, great. So we had a unit at Salford Uni called Session Musicianship.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought that was quite a funny thing. But
yeah.
I think that there are jobs, but it's so hard to get into it. But I think the way that you can make money is, I suppose it still is a session musician, but it's more different. Is kind of the more function work thing. So the function model, so the idea of like, so what I mean by function work is like playing in a band or some sort of group where you are playing covers for a specific function, like for example a wedding, a birthday, corporate events, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the easiest way. Well, kind of.
Can I just ask you, what would be the kind of requirement as a function band? What are the sort of things you'd have to do? So maybe like we talk about playing 245s, for example.
Yeah.
We talk a bit about that. Like, what are the kind of ins and outs of being in a function band?
So, very good question. So I'd say that in no particular order, there's not one that's more important than the other. But first of all, in fact, there's a really good video by Adam Neely. There's a guy called Adam Neely on YouTube. He's very good. He does a lot of good YouTube videos, but he's worth mentioning.
Yeah, without sounding cheesy, I can link him in the description.
Please do.
Get into that whole Like and
Yeah.
subscribe, guys.
Like and subscribe. You click, is it?
But yeah,
Just
I will
tap
link
that
him.
button.
I will link him, yeah, because if you don't want to talk about him a bit, yeah.
Yeah, but no, just because he actually did a video about this, which was quite cool, and I watched it and I was like, that is definitely it. But and I do have students sometimes asking about it. I would say so. First of all, having a vast knowledge of songs from a load of different styles of music. Now, generally, that there are more styles that are more popular than others. So, for example, like top 40, soul and Motown. Noughties rock is a big thing at the moment in the past 5 or 10 years because everyone that is our age is getting married, so they all want to hear the Killers. So yeah, I know. Yeah, that's depressing, isn't it?
Mr. Brightside, yeah.
Mr. Shiteside, as we
Mr.
call it in the
Shiteside,
industry. Yeah, no. God, the amount of times I played that song, for fuck's sake. I liked it when I first heard it in 2004. Anyway, but so
it's been played to death now, isn't it? So yeah, so carry on, yeah.
Yeah, there's that whole meme about like people shouting for Mr. Brightside when you're playing it, but fucking wankers. But yeah, so knowledge of music. So like basically learn a lot of songs, have them like ready to go, like know them roughly. So because you mentioned the idea of 245s, you might be in a situation where you do a dep gig and you will just pull together what you know because there's bound to be crossover. I've done gigs.
What's a dep gig then?
Sorry, yeah. So I think it's short for deputizing. So it's a term that we tend to use more in the UK. In the America, they tend to call it a sub, like a substitute. So so basically, it's a situation where you are a stand-in for another musician who can't play that gig, and then sometimes it might be very short notice. Like I've done gigs where they've asked me to do a dep on the night, like 3 hours before, and they've said, "Here's the address. Here's the set list." Sometimes I've done gigs where there's no set list. So I've got there and I've gone, right, oh, nice to meet you. My name's Tom. Hello, my name's so-and-so. Never met them before. And then we go, right, what we're going to play? And they go, and they sit down and they go, right, what do you know? And I say to them, what do you guys know? And we just, and so because you have that knowledge, it makes it so much easier. That's...
I have a kind of couple of stories about depping, which is pretty funny, but just carry on.
So many, man, we could be here for hours.
So let's talk about so you've told depping is essentially just standing in for another musician that can't play that gig or that show.
Yeah.
And it tends to be pretty short notice. So I do have one particular story where I was asked to dep for
go for it, man.
I was asked to dep for basically like I guess we call it like a pit gig or like a theatre style gig.
Of course, yeah.
It was for Les Miserables, as I call it at the time, Les Miserables.
No. You said Les Miserables.
Les Miserables. I was like, I played I dep for this guy, like did Les Miserables.
Les Miserables.
It was in East Manchester in a high school, and it was like the final show of the kind of the series or whatever, and I got the score on the day. 3.5 hour score, 3.5 hour piece, and it looked like honestly, right, if you've ever used like is it Sibelius or Sonar, and you've used the drum notation, okay.
Sonar.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's like shockingly bad. Like
nothing's grouped. It's
nothing's
just all.
Grouped.
Yeah.
It looked like that. This is what the score looked like to me.
Man.
All like irregular time signatures, and like I'm thankful, obviously, to the drummer that gave me the gig, and but he was like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. He'll just pass it to me. Oh, you'll be fine. No worries." So I get there, and again, this is another imposter syndrome feeling. I had no clue what I was doing. I had the bassist sat next to me. He was basically cueing me in every 5 seconds. I was losing my place. He was He was having to cue me back in. It was horrendous, and I literally I wanted, as soon as the show was over, I wanted to just pack up and leave and get out of there. And I just thought, I mean, there was a bunch of like Royal Northern College of Music players there as well. That was a crazy experience, but I mean, we've actually played in a few together in a couple of function bands. So
we have, yeah.
We've had some interesting experiences, I'd say.
Yeah.
One in particular, we played this really rough pub in like a place called Haywood in North Manchester. And,
Oh God, yeah. Fucking hell, I forgot that.
that was probably
The Fuzz.
yeah, it was a while ago. And
2009, maybe.
so let's just say the people there were pretty, I'd just say, kind of chavvy, kind of skinhead, like BNP kind of Brexit kind of people, you know. And this is like we're playing, you know, during the songs, like guys would just be like, I'm not even kidding, like one guy just got his dick out. And
He did, didn't he? Got his cock out.
Got his cock out and just started flapping about everywhere. And then there was like 40-year-old like mums like grinding up against like the pillars and stuff. And what can you remember can you remember much from that gig? Apart from falling over.
We did two. Yeah, there was that. We did two of those gigs. I remember the first one being a bit better, but it was the kind of, you know, grinding, you know, like mums, which was a bit weird. But at least they were kind of like getting into it and having a good time. And then the second time it was just these chavvy lads, and yeah, one of them just got his cock out, and it was fucking tiny, just like, it's like a seahorse, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And then I fell over. It
Tell
was.
us about that, because that was
Basket Case. I was playing Basket Case.
Green Day. It's a Green Day song, like really popular Green Day song.
So my excuse for it was that we were fucking, you know, like we were in the corner of a pub, you know, usual pub gig where they go, right, you're over there, lads, and it's like, you know,
shove you in a corner with no plugs, no stage, nothing.
You just like, you know, like how pubs, like saloon style pubs, have got the kind of wooden shelves to go all the way along, about kind of. Yeah. So when we were trying to kind of fit, so you kind of went into a corner, and then Jack was borrowing this bass rig from fucking Josh Brearley. There's you know Josh Brearley at Salford Uni, and it was this massive Trace Elliott like rig. It was fucking huge. It was like a 410 or something like that, and God knows how we fit that in. So and then me and Carl were just kind of squeezed up, so I couldn't really move, and so the reason I fell was putting on my distortion pedal for the, you know, for the da-da. That was why I fell over. So, but I kind of fell over. Literally,
because I was obviously on the drums, and I had like first person perspective, and I just saw him. Like Tom literally just tipped forward onto his face, like, and just like face planted the floor, just as we were about to like all kind of, it's like the section where you all come together and like the band comes in, and he literally hit the floor as the section in the song changed, and it was fucking hell. It was incredible, man.
That was good. Yeah, there was so many stories. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, they're the kind of gigs where you're really fucking struggling as a musician, and you're going to take anything you're given, basically. 50 quid pub gig in bloody some rough part of Manchester, you'll take it because you need to fucking pay your bills, or you. Well,
yeah, you know, especially in 2009, you know, like when you know,
it's desperate measures, like, you know.
But one thing I will say about it is, though, it's character building. And it's fun, and we can laugh about it now. Yeah. But I do know what you mean. Playing pub gigs can be very, very soul destroying, because sometimes they can be the best, and sometimes they can be the worst. Because it's hard to describe, but I know what you mean. Money wise, it's shocking.
I think generally, if you're in a function band, so you're playing weddings, you're playing parties, you're playing corporates. Generally, I'd say I would actually say close to 100% of the time, you're playing to the non-musos, so people who are not musicians.
Yeah, generally, yeah.
And generally, they'll be pissed as well, so that's your audience. Almost 100% of the time, that's your audience.
Can be great, because they can be really into it.
Yeah.
But it can be awful. You know, so definitely.
I mean, it's kind of like you do have to play to the audience.
Of course.
whatever they want, essentially. So that's the kind of downside of being in a covers band. And but like I wanted to, I mean, now I wanted to kind of segue to your experience working. So Tom has actually played on the ships, cruise ships, as a musician, which is considered nowadays probably one of the most stable kind of positions you can get as a professional musician, is to work on the ships, because you get like quite long contracts, like six months usually. You know, you get a steady monthly income, you get all your board paid for, your food, and you get to see some really beautiful places around the world, and kind of travel as well at the same time. And so if you want to talk a bit about that.
Made some notes on this. Oh my god. So playing on ships is interesting. I mean, I only did it briefly for about 3 or 4 weeks. So I'd say, okay, so what I'll do is I'll just tell you about the the goods and the bads, and then I'll tell you about what happened to me. So the goods are like you were saying, Rick. You know, it was a decent salary. Like I was getting paid kind of close to what I might have got in like an office job. It was actually quite a lot of money.
That's the good thing about it, is that you actually feel like you're being paid for what you should be being paid as a professional musician. You know. Yeah,
definitely. So you know, you all your food's paid. You know, you've got the food was really good on the ships. You can eat food in the mess. The mess is like, you know, like where the staff eat and stuff. So you can eat, but you can also eat on deck with the passengers. But then you're at the mercy of them asking the stupidest questions and being complete wankers. But So yeah, it's good in that sense. You get to see the world. I mean, you know, I went to New Zealand, which was fucking amazing. The social element of it is great. Like, and this is me as like someone in my 30s. You know, I really like the social element of it. Like, because there's so many different people on the ship. There's like the ship I was on, which was the Majestic Princess. It was like 4,000 crew. So there's a lot of people, and so you get to meet loads of different people. Even if you don't get along with some, you're going to find people that you get along with. So the crew bar was great, just hanging out with different types of people from loads of different countries. So the social element of it was really cool. The playing element of it can be really good as well if you have the right people. The bad sides of it, having a cabin you have to share with someone that's tiny with no window. Yeah, that was hard. Being stuck on the ship when you're at sea for more than a few days, that's hard because it's boring. You've got nothing to do. You know, we what was it? Someone called it the blue desert. That's what they call the ocean. You know, like when you, it's like the blue desert.
True, yeah,
it's
I mean,
weird.
It is a desert in a sense. It's just a different kind of desert. You know,
it's a weird one. And what makes that harder as well is that because the passengers have nothing to do, you have to work harder as an entertainer. So there's more things going on. Whereas when you dock somewhere, when on your itinerary you stop somewhere, everyone's off the ship. So you're not doing much until 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Now, my experience, I'll try and keep it short, but I joined this function band very late. They needed a bassist, and I was like, you know, it was at the time and I wanted to work abroad, and I came across this post and I was like, great. So I looked into it and I was like, great, sounds good. And they told me about the itinerary. The first one was New Zealand and Australia, and then it was going to involve bits of Southeast Asia. And then the next one was going to be Canada. So I was like, you know, Alaska and stuff. And I was like, great, sounds amazing. This is great. So, and I got given all these songs. I knew most of them, but I learned the rest. I went to start rehearsing with these guys, and I was a bit unsure about the singer. You know, I mean, I know singers can be a bit, anyway. They can be, you know, singers can be a bit, you know, they think they're right when they're not. I mean, not all singers, but some. But I was just like, me and the keys player, this guy called Ryan, he was really good. We were chatting like afterwards, had some food, and we're like, what's the deal with, you know, I don't mind saying her name, I don't give a shit, she's called Lindsay. And he was like, oh, I don't know. So anyway, we got on the ship, and I realised that she couldn't sing. Like, she couldn't sing in tune. She didn't know when, you know, she didn't know when to come in on a song, like to start. She couldn't count. She couldn't clap. She didn't understand you were supposed to clap on 2 and 4.
So the question is, how did this person get the gig?
I don't know. Like, the only thing I can think of is that they had this audition and they chose songs that they were really good at, and they were good enough.
Well, maybe the people who are kind of doing the auditions are not musicians themselves. They're more.
Well, the funny thing is, they are. The guy.
They are.
I'm not going to mention.
Well,
obviously, I won't mention agencies or anything. But the guy that booked us he used to be a cruise ship musician. So, and I don't know how he wasn't. I don't know how he wasn't kind of, culpable for the decision. So yeah, so it was a nightmare because she hadn't learned enough songs. We had about 3 days worth of material at best. So repeating songs after 2 or 3 days on a ship, I was like, this is really, really bad. And she, we got to the point where we're having arguments on stage. She was awful. She just refused to listen to any form of, not even criticism, just suggestions. Like I'd say, right, we've not got enough songs, Lindsay. You tell me all the songs that you know that we've not done yet. Just give me a list of like 20 tunes and we'll learn them. We were saying that we'd go and learn them. She still won't do that. And in the end, we got kicked off early. After 3 weeks.
Basically got fired, essentially.
Basically. Yeah. But they didn't say that. Their excuse was, we don't think you're the right kind of band for us as we go into, because we were going into, we were kind of going to go into more of they called it like an Asian season, because we were kind of picking up more Asian passengers, because we were going to be getting a lot of people from China and Japan. So they said that we weren't really, and I agree, because one of the things that I noticed was that when we first started playing, we had people coming up to us asking us to play ballroom music, which I remember when me and you prepped for the ships years ago. Do you remember us learning mambos and cha-chas? We did that, didn't we?
Trying to, yeah. But I'm absolutely hopeless at playing that kind of stuff. So.
No, but like we did it. You know what I mean? We did do it. Whereas like there was none of that. And I was like, and I thought, you're right. We should know all of these. We should know tangos. We should know rumbas. All that Dave Hassel stuff. And so So one of the hardest things about it was
Dave Hassel, amazing drummer, incredible drummer, teacher. He was one of the drum tutors at Salford. I don't know if he might still be there, but he was also I think he was the main tutor at Royal Northern College of Music as well.
Yeah, I think he still is at Royal Northern.
Yeah, he's very well known on the kind of Manchester scene, and he's played for like, I don't know, 40, 50 years, and really interesting guy, a really amazing drummer, musician. So yeah, carry on. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, I like him. I like Dave Hassel.
Yeah.
He's a funny guy. He's got a lot of character. So yeah, one of the hardest things for me that really pissed me off the most was the other musicians on the ship I really liked them. So we were the way it worked in the band in the ship. We were there was a party band, which we were. So we kind of played in the midship area, the atrium area, and then there was.
So what's you talk about party band? So this is something that's pretty common on working on the cruise ships as a musician. You have the party, you play in a party band, or you're the other one is when you basically
an orchestral musician,
musician. Yeah.
Yeah. So So you've got kind of a self-contained band that just play, and then you have the shows that happen in the theatre where they have like an orchestra band.
Yeah. So the party band they actually have their own repertoire that they bring with them.
Absolutely.
So they learn like 500 songs or something.
They're supposed to be ready to go. Yeah. And we weren't. We had maybe 5 rehearsals. And I felt like we didn't get anywhere in them. Because I got there into the rehearsals and I thought, I've got a lot of songs to learn here. I thought, wonder how we're going to get on. And the first rehearsal, which was about 4 or 5 hours, I think we got through about 10 songs.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, well, and I went away and learned all the tunes we needed to learn. I learned all the keys, I learned all the harmonies, I learned all the songs I was supposed to do, but Lindsay didn't. She So it was...
I mean, I think like me and Tom actually were in a function band, and we were prepping to go on the cruise ships.
Yeah,
this was like 2014, I think.
2014, yeah.
We did an audition in London, but we weren't successful. But we bought the what's it called, the Real Book, which is just a huge catalogue of popular songs. The
Real Rock Book.
Yeah, the Real Rock Book. Tom's got it here. There you go. So we actually just worked through that, and the great thing is a lot of popular songs have this very similar format. You know, same length of verses, choruses, and when you kind of get a feel for it and get an idea of how songs are essentially, and you can just kind of pick them up pretty quick, and it helps to learn songs quicker. But just because the songs are all kind of very similar, so yeah. So carry on. What were you saying, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It you know, that would make sense. You know, having something like that, and it reminded me of the prep that we had done. You know, those years before. So, but one of the things that just did me in the most was that the other musicians I really got along with, and they were a good laugh. And I mean, most of them, one or two of them were a bit quiet, and we didn't want to talk. But you know, but you know, I kind of felt like I got the impression from some of them that because of Lindsay and how bad she was, that it reflected on all of us, and they didn't think we were that good at first, and that kind of made me feel a bit. I couldn't help but feel like we're not shit. Like the rest of the band were actually really good. Yeah. Like the guitarist, who was our partner, but he was a nice guy. He was a great guitarist, and then the keys player. I think
that's problematic when you're in a band with a couple. You know, because it can really go tits up.
Such a bad idea.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend that to anyone starting a band, or you know, don't get in a relationship with someone. It can really go to shit. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So you were saying, Tom? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, man. I should have fucking known that from before, but it was only, you know, we managed to redeem ourselves a little bit, because in the last like 2 or 3 nights we found out that they had told Lindsay they didn't want her to sing. So we were like, oh my god.
That's rough.
Yeah, and you know, and obviously our partner's the guitarist, so he has to carry on. So we were singing the songs, you know, which we were singing most of them anyway. She wasn't singing that many. Sometimes we were doing a 45-minute set and she was singing 3 songs.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So and then we actually, you know, managed to get a little bit of, you know, kind of little bit of redemption in that they kind of, you know, they came up to us like, oh, you guys are actually really good, and we were like. Yeah, it's probably because Lindsay's not singing with us, but yeah, cheers. And they were like, oh, yeah. But so it was, you know, I think I would do it again for a short amount of time if I had the right people.
Yeah,
you know,
like I think you should. Yeah, definitely. We talked about, like, you know, you've had one experience; it was pretty bad, but you would be open to trying it again. With the right people, it could be a really, really amazing experience.
Yeah,
and
you know, it really could.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty short, but you've also worked your main experience working abroad as a musician would be in the hotels, in the kind of hotel resorts. So you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I ended up playing at the same place twice, funny enough. So I went to this resort in Crete, run by kind of TUI. The old Thompson TUI company, and which was, so I did it in 2015 for a bit, and I ended up doing it in last year, 2019, when I came back from the cruise gig. And on the whole, it was, you know, I felt like I wanted to do it and I wanted to give it a go. It was a long contract. It was about 6 months, so it was like May till November, and bits of it I really enjoyed. You know, living in Crete was great. Some of the musicians.
That's Greece, for anyone that doesn't know where Crete is. Just for my international viewers.
Minotaur.
It's a beautiful island. It is, really beautiful place. Crete.
Lovely place. Yeah, that's one of the best things about, you know, the gig was, you know, being on a ship was hard, and I kind of felt if I get like a land-based gig, it's better because I can just go and explore and stuff. It was a bit easier. So that part of it was good, and the locals were fun, and you know, it was nice, you know, living next to the sea and all that kind of stuff. But the hardest thing about it really was kind of being under the watchful eye of a very big company, constantly. You know, kind of feel like it was difficult, especially as someone who's been self-employed most of my life, you know, pretty much all of my working life, and you know, being told what to do by people that have no concept. You know, that's the biggest thing, being told what to do as a musician by people that are definitely not musicians and have never been musicians, and they don't seem to understand, and all they care about is the concept of entertainment. And I get it, so they get that more than we do, but then they need to think that we also get that kind of thing. Like the idea of like, what for just a one example, we used to play, which I thought was a bit. We used to play till 12:30, which I thought was quite late, to be honest. I think 12 o'clock. By about 11:45, there was no one there.
Right. So
this is a resort that has at capacity 1,500 people.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So so most of the time, if I got the late slot, we were told that we were supposed to do upbeat and party tunes for the late slot, which I was like, "There's no one there. I'm not wasting my voice for no one. If it's busy, So I didn't agree with them there. They had this music policy that I felt like they just didn't get it, and all they cared about was, I don't know. So that side of it's very stressful, and it was difficult. But I had a great time, and I met some great people, and it was nice to get away from it all for a little while. But I was glad to be back.
I mean, would you recommend like doing cruise work or doing hotel work? Like, would you recommend it? I mean,
I would.
You would
just to try it. I'd recommend. Yeah.
I mean,
especially
the money's fairly good as well.
It's not too bad for what you're doing. I was playing 6 nights a week for the hotel gig, so I get a day off. Sometimes I wouldn't start until 9 o'clock in the evening, so you've got most of your day. Your food, you get your food in the hotel, and your flights are paid for, and that kind of stuff. So I'd say if you like performing in general, if you're a musician who really enjoys just performing in general, I think you should do it. But you have to treat it very much as a job. And for me was I'd done that to some extent with function work, but not every night for 6 weeks. It was hard. Towards the end, I was just like, I do just not give a shit anymore. And it did get to the point where it almost ruined playing for me. I almost got to a point where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy performing anymore in my life. It was mainly because I just felt like I was going upstairs to this lobby and just playing to no one that was interested. And all they were interested in was shouting for shit songs. That was it. I just felt like a bit of a performing monkey, and that I got quite resentful about that. But it's part of the gig, It's you've got to balance.
I think you can kind of. It's on paper. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? Like, going on a cruise ship, going, seeing the world, traveling, getting paid. Everything's paid for, your accommodation and your food, but these are the kind of day-to-day ins and outs of, you're talking about things that you don't know about, that it isn't all positive. There's some really crappy sides to those experiences, but it's like you said, it's worth a go. It's worth a try. And I mean, there's some people who have made a career out of it, haven't there?
Yeah.
I mean, like career cruise musicians.
Yeah.
And they make a good living from it, and they don't mind all the traveling, and they tend to be pretty fucked up people, though, from what I've been told.
Yeah.
That's like, a bit mental, like.
But because there's got to be something about someone who is being away from home for such a long time, and it's like, are they trying to get away from something? I did meet a few people on the cruise ships where they were perfectly nice people, but then when I kind of got chatting to them, I got the impression that something had happened to them, and they were trying to kind of get away from it, and they were treating it as a bit of a kind of extended sabbatical. But then there was a few people that I met that just used it as a bit of a cash injection. So they kind of do it for a bit, then leave it for a bit. So there was a drummer called Scott that was really cool. He was in his 50s, and really cool, kind of surfer, kind of Californian guy. He was really cool. He was a great drummer, and he was a good laugh. And he really, because I was really miserable when I first got there, just because of all the Lindsay stuff, and he really cheered me up. So he kind of uses it as he was like, I don't particularly enjoy this, but I do it for a certain amount of time. I get some money, and then I go home and I build my own studio, and I do what I want to do for another 6 months, and then I go and do it for another couple of months. So there are some people who use it a bit of a dip in and out, but then some Some become they just prefer ship life to normal life, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. There's something like, I don't know. I mean, I can see the attraction of it though.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, so basically, I think we can probably wrap it up soon. But I've really enjoyed it, Tom, and
yeah, man, this has been great chatting.
It's been really good, and I really appreciate it. I would actually love to do another one with you, and we could actually talk about you as a writer, like as a your own music.
Absolutely,
we haven't really talked about that, so I'd love to do another episode with you about that, and as a songwriter, and because that's a completely different world to, in my opinion, to being a session musician. It's a really totally different mindset, and I'd love to talk about that. So we'll do that. But there's one last question I'd like to kind of end with is, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? Like, I mean, I guess as a musician, where do you see yourself? Since we've been talking about that. What would you like to do? Like, what's your ambitions and stuff like that? And
I think I want to kind of, what I've been trying to do this year, which is obviously there's it's been impacted a lot of everything going on, but one of the things I wanted to try and do this year was focus a lot more on my own material. So like you mentioned, and one of the things I did do is kind of put together a kind of solo project band. So one of the things I do want to keep doing in the next few years is play my own songs in a band, do more recordings, and I want to properly release an album. That's kind of what I wanted to do this year, but it's not really happened. I've managed to do bits and bobs. So I think for me, I want to do more originals gigs. I want to record more material properly and put on, I've dithered with my songwriting over the years, and I've been a bit like, oh, is it good enough? So I want to do more of that. Function work, I can take it or leave it. It's a nice bit of money, but then it shouldn't be a case where you're going, oh, I'm gonna choose that because I'm gonna get paid, but then it's gonna stop me from doing something that I want to do. I don't want to do that anymore. But then
So
yeah, definitely.
Currently, you're just teaching basically. Would it full time, part time?
Pretty much full time. I mean, I'm doing 4 days a week at the moment. I was doing some school stuff pre COVID, but so yeah, it's been mostly teaching. And if COVID wasn't going on, I probably would have done some function work this year as well. Probably in the summer the most. But it's kind of been nice to have a bit of a break from it, because I said that I wasn't going to do too much because I'd done so much in 2019. Being on a cruise ship, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, teaching is kind of my main. I like teaching because it's enjoyable, but it feels more like a normal job. It's like, I'm here in my studio. I'm like, I'm going to teach vocals for 4 hours. Great, let's do it. Let's do arpeggios. Let's do warm-ups. And I quite like that side of it. It feels like it's the closest thing to having a normal feeling job or a stable job.
Yeah.
Compared to gigs, and the hours are less antisocial than gigs are. No driving home at 2 a.m. So that's good.
That's great, man. It's been so nice to just to talk about, like, kind of reminisce and get a bit nostalgic, and I've kind of learned a bit more about you as well. Like your kind of upbringing in Leicester, and I've learned a bit more about that, and I just hope that if some people see it as some like fledgling musicians, they might take something away from it and be like,
me too,
inspired by it, or they'll take something from it. So we'll do another episode. We'll talk about you in the next episode. We'll do another one and talk about you as a songwriter, and like your experience being in a originals band, and
great, man.
And like how can things like how can you be successful as an originals musician, and what are the kind of steps that you, I suppose, need to take to get there. But we all know that it's not straightforward, and
no,
there's no
set path.
There's no formula to being a successful musician, being a rock star or whatever. But I am looking to do some. I'm looking to do a conversation with some one guy in particular. I won't name him, but I'm hoping he'll do one with me. He was in quite a successful band in the UK during the kind of early noughties to mid noughties. So I'm hoping to get him on. He'll talk about that, and but yeah, thanks, Tom.
Great, thanks for having me, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really fun.
I'll see you soon. Yeah,
see you soon, buddy.
Thanks, Tom.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and if you could like and subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Okay, guys. So here we are. This is the video. So underneath the title. Yeah, there's the title. Underneath there, you'll see the little thumbs up sign. Say I like this. So click on that. And then just a bit further down, you've got to subscribe. Click on that. There we go. It's free to subscribe. There's no cost or anything involved. And you'll receive notifications when any new videos are uploaded to my channel. So thanks for that.